Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Michelle Kurth, and I am your instructor for this 7 weeks or so, for these 7 weeks. And we are talking about 21st century skills, really about information literacy and communication. And this class is really foundational because it's going to help you to think critically. It's going to help you to write with more of an academic scholarly tone. And so I've had a lot of questions from you in my Halo messages about kind of expectations and some nervousness around, maybe writing a little bit more scholarly and maybe not being as familiar with APA 7th edition formatting. And so I want to kind of calm those nerves a little bit and spend maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes just talking through the class, like what my expectations are, but then also giving you some tips and tricks on how you can really bring your best self to class. And so hopefully some of what I go through today will help set you up for success. And I'm always open to questions as you have them. So as we move forward, I want to talk a little bit about technology literacy. What does that actually mean? I will also show you a couple different sites that I use when it comes to searching for empirical research. And empirical meaning these are original studies that are coming out, right? Articles that have data being reported for the first time. So I will talk you through and show you how to pull some of this research. We'll also go through how to read a journal article because I know when I first started in my doctoral program, I was very overwhelmed and I found myself reading articles like how we've been taught, which is from the beginning to the end. And the number of articles I was asked to read each week was extremely intimidating and very overwhelming. And I didn't, quite frankly, understand half the words that were in these articles. And so, a professor of mine at GCU while I was in the program kind of taught me her tips and tricks on how you actually read a journal article and, not go crazy and get the information you need when you need it. And we'll talk through that. I want to pass along that wisdom and then a tiny bit on critical thinking. So to start, let's talk a little bit about what success looks like in this course. I would say first and foremost, maintain an online presence in Halo. I do try to get back to all of you within 24 hours. I do work full time and teach at another university, so I do my best to respond as quickly as I can, but that presence in Halo is really important. I think it's also important for you to make connections with those in your class. And I was telling one of our students in the class that how we start the course really sets it up for the support and engagement that will continue over the next several weeks. So please take advantage of really getting to know your peers and taking time to get to know me as I will get to know you. Utilize the class resources in Halo. So within each topic, you're going to see the resources on the right-hand side of the screen. And that is where you will find articles, required reading, optional reading, any and all of those links, and your text is in there as well. I'll show you how to get to that. But I will say one thing that's really important within that is you can use these to answer your discussion questions. You can use these as in-text citations for your participation posts. You can use some of these within your papers and your worksheets that you have due over the next several weeks. The next tip I have for you is to just stay up to date with the chapter reading from the textbook. The textbook is only 87 pages. It's really not a lot, but it is filled with great information that I think will help and be a really great supplement for you as you kind of journey on in this class. Communicate early and often, so please don't wait until the last minute. If you anticipate like you have to go out of town, something's going on, I would just ask, just reach out, let me know what's going on. I'm tend to be very supportive, so really want to make sure you guys are successful, but please communicate early and often. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Truly, there's not. Familiarize yourselves with the rubrics for your assignments. So I know some of you are just now either coming back to college for the first time or this is one of your first courses that you're taking. I would say that assignments at GCU are really graded based off of rubrics. So I would ask that you familiarize yourself with those rubrics, especially when it comes to papers and whatnot. That is what I grade off of, and that's what professors and instructors at GCU GCU grade off of. So please familiarize yourself with that. So as you're going through, a really great tip that I learned is if I'm writing a paper, I have the rubric in front of me. I'm looking at that. I'm making sure that I'm hitting all of those points so that I can maximize my grade, right? And you have that there, you'll know exactly what's expected. Ask questions. I already talked about that. Utilize GCU resources. So we do have the Writing Center, which is available to you. We have so many resources online. We have the GCU Library, which we'll go through at a high level today, just so you can see how to utilize that resource. But use your GCU resources. There's so much out there for you. And a part of this class is really to experiment and play with those resources that are available to you. Plagiarism, obviously not going to be tolerated. So I would ask, right, assignments are going to go through Lopes, right, which is our plagiarism tool. If the assignment is required to go through Lopes, right, it will let you know that, and you'll see it also in the instructions. AI is your friend. I recognize AI is not going anywhere. In fact, AI can be very helpful. So I would say integrity is still expected with it. So we don't want to use AI to think for us. And I can tell when something is written by AI and is not maybe necessarily your thoughts. So please, again, utilize it responsibly. How I've utilized AI in the past is I come up and I think for myself. And then if I feel like I need help with the transition sentence or the flow doesn't sound quite right, or I need to make it a little bit more polished, I will put in my original thoughts into AI and have it kind of structure it a little bit differently or give me tips and suggestions. Grammarly is another great tool that I have a plugin for, and I use that for my writing as well. APA 7th edition style and formatting is required for our assignments. And we use APA 7th edition style. That is the latest edition that is out there for APA. And I will say you can absolutely, if you want, no pressure, can purchase the APA 7th edition manual off Amazon. You can get it in print and digital version. They even have a small APA book that is for students specifically. And so that kind of covers your basics. But APA 7th edition, you will get more comfortable with it as the class moves on. And so the last thing I will say, unless the assignment states otherwise, I would say if you're pulling scholarly journal articles and you're citing them, if it's not something that's based off of an original theory, for example, a seminal work, meaning I'm the author that came up with this theory and came up with the instrument that we were using in the study, that is something you can go back to the original source from the 1970s or whatever that is. However, if you are trying to find supporting articles for any, let's say your expository essay, I would ask that these articles are published within the last 5 years. So please do your best to do that. You won't necessarily get points docked for it, but as a rule of thumb, we like to use articles that are published within the last 3 to 5 years, because that is going to be kind of the new and the emerging trends in that field or in that area. You can absolutely cite older than that. Like I said, I would ask that you supplement it also with a newer article. So let's talk through technology literacy. What is technology literacy? That is truly just the ability of you as an individual to select the appropriate technology for the task, okay? And to employ it ethically and responsibly. So I talked about AI as an example, right? We can use AI. We want to employ it very responsibly. And GCU does have an AI policy as well. So technology literacy covered. Let's talk a little bit about technology and software that I think will be helpful for you in this course and in your future courses. First and foremost, I mentioned Lopes, right? Lopes is our kind of plagiarism tool that you will upload your documents, and before you submit it, it goes through what's called a Lopes check, and it will give you a similarity score. Now, if there are direct quotations you're using, it will call it out. You may have a direct quoted percentage score that's higher. I would ask that you maybe minimize how many exact quotes you're using, but also just make sure that you're citing it, okay? And you're not claiming that as your own quote. The similarity score in general will also pull other articles that are either on the web, or maybe another student put in, and it will actually tell you when you pull up your Lopes-Wright report kind of what is happening. And it may say that it sounds similar to something maybe you published previously or you uploaded into Lopes-Wright previously. It may show something that another student has done, and I do get those reports as well, so I can pull it up. I do have students that ask me typically, like, what is I have a 12% similarity score. What does that mean? Am I okay to turn it in? Yes, you're okay to turn it in. I would say if you are getting above 20%, 25%, there's probably, we need to kind of scale it back a little bit and maybe paraphrase a little bit differently. Again, happy to answer questions on that. But I would say even under 30 is okay. Anything over that, we'll probably need to like revise a little bit. OWL at Purdue is a really great website that you can use, and that is an APA 7th edition formatting site. I believe I put this link in the announcement section for this first week so that you can actually utilize that as a I guess, citation checker reference point. It's really great. Sage Research Methods is another great tool. There's a link in it. You will also, I believe, have it in this deck. I think I put it in this deck. And then GCU Library and Google Scholar. So I will show you Google Scholar and I will show you GCU Library. Microsoft Office Suite. So really you're going to be using in this class, more than likely Word is going to be what you're going to use. I will say, just make sure that if you're using a Mac and you're using Pages and not Word, that you are just double checking that formatting for APA 7th edition, right? And making sure that you're really following it. Sometimes when you upload them into Halo, the formatting can be a little bit off on that. So just please do your best to make sure that it's as close as possible. RefWorks and EndNote are both citation management tools. You can also download these through GCU. I believe you can find the link in there. And, RefWorks, for example, I have a citation management plugin for RefWorks in my Microsoft Word. And that just helps you manage your citations throughout your writing. And then finally, we do offer the Student Success Center. We have the Writing Center. We'll utilize Zoom if we need a video chat on anything. Grammarly, I mentioned. Grammarly is fantastic. I highly recommend utilizing Grammarly for all of your writing. One thing I will call out is that for this week's assignment, it is a worksheet that you're uploading into Lopes-Wright. And sometimes worksheets will come up with a higher similarity score. Okay, and that's okay. So if you find that you upload your worksheet for this week's assignment and it has an unbelievably high similarity score, please don't freak out. It's okay. Sometimes worksheets will bring that up a little bit, and that's just because we're utilizing the same types of templates in these classes. Okay. Now I want to talk through a couple ways to search for articles, right? Keywords that we can use. What does truncation mean? What's a Boolean operator? So when you're searching for articles, if I were to just go into a website, whether it's Google Scholar or I'm just Googling something and I type in the word motivation, you're going to have millions upon millions of hits that come up on that. You can use symbols in your keyword searches to actually filter out some of the results that hit back. So one way you can do this is through something called truncation. And the truncation symbol is that little asterisk. So you can see it there on the left hand of the screen, the left side of the screen. When you're doing a keyword search, you can actually broaden your search without having to insert every variation of the word. So for example, if I wanted to find articles and I wanted to include women or woman, I could go ahead and put that little truncation symbol where the A or the E would go in that word. And that will pull up women or woman. Okay. If I typed in and Christ may pull up Christ. It may pull up Christian. It may pull up Christianity. If I typed in the word leader with the truncation at the end, it would pull back results that would include leader, maybe leaders, maybe leadership. Okay, so truncation will actually broaden your search without having to say women and woman and Christ and Christianity. Okay? Easy, easy. I would say play with that. Boolean operators are actually, they connect key concepts together. And there are three simple words, and I will show you in the GCU library how to use it. But the three words are and, or, and not. Okay. And a Boolean operator, where a truncation kind of broadens the search, the Boolean operator is actually narrowing and refining the search results that come back. Okay. So on the truncation, I talked about, woman or women and Christ and leader. I could type in women and Christian and leadership. Okay. And that will pull up those phrases. Okay. Women and Christian and leadership. If I wanted to use the or, what I could do is I could say, Christian leadership or religious supervision or spiritual guidance. Okay. It would pull up this or this or this. Okay. Let's say if it's in the title, for example. And then examples using not. I might say, I want to find an article in the keyword Christian leadership or nonprofit leadership, not men. Okay. And by doing that, it will make sure that men is not necessarily in the title. And it also helps me to maybe define and refine my population search. Maybe I just want it to be women. So maybe I say Christian leadership or nonprofit leadership, not men. Or I can say Christian leadership or nonprofit leadership and women. Okay. Because I might be specific in who I want to, the articles that I want to read, right? Who it's about. I will show you that in the library in a second. So I mentioned the GCU Library and I mentioned Google Scholar. So the GCU Library, super, super helpful. Again, I'll do a little demo of it, but we want to find peer-reviewed articles. And when I say peer-reviewed means these articles that authors or researchers or whomever are publishing go through a very rigorous review process. And usually it's a panel of people that are either content experts or, they have really a lot to say, or they have a lot of wisdom in that area. And they actually go through a feedback process so that we make sure that articles that are being published in academic, journal sites or article, publications, that we are putting through and publishing the best of the best. So these articles undergo very, very rigorous review process. And so peer-reviewed is always, in my opinion, the best type of article to use if you're supporting something, a thesis claim, right? Or what you're trying to say. It's always great to back it up with a peer-reviewed article. And when I say that, I say that because I don't want you for your papers to go through and say, quote Harvard Business Review, or go and just put Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not, necessarily an academic source. It's not always credible. So that's why I say peer reviewed, and you can actually search by peer reviewed, and that will ensure that you are finding things and using them in the right way. Within the GCU library, you can search different databases. You can search different journals. You can search research guides. You can also use interlibrary loan. So interlibrary loan, for those of you who have not used it, sometimes there have been times, for me at least, where I can actually pull up an article and it's not available maybe in the GCU library, or it's something that I'm being asked to pay for through another website. And I don't want to do that. So there may be an option for you to do an interlibrary loan through GCU, where the librarians can actually find that article for you and loan it to you. They can send you the PDF. They can, figure it out. You can download it a certain number of times. So if you need to do that, that's why I say kind of know what is due and what you want to use, because it may take a few days to get that interlibrary loan. Okay, so if it's an article you're super, super passionate about and it's not available, this is an option for you. Google Scholar. So Google Scholar, free search engine for scholarly articles. Okay, you can actually link the GCU library within the settings function, and I will show you how to do this. So it will list in Google Scholar if that article is available in full text and in GCU's library. Okay, it's pretty awesome and epic, and I will show you how to do that. Google Scholar also has a cite function to obtain an APA formatted reference. And then you can also in both, whether it's GCU Library or Google Scholar, you can actually see the cited by. And cited by is a feature that actually shows the number of times other authors have actually cited that particular author. It's a great reference point. So one thing that I struggled with early on in my writing was I don't even know where to start, right? Because I'm getting, I'm typing in the word motivation and I'm getting 30,000 results back. So one, how do I filter appropriately? That took a little bit to learn. Not going to lie. That's okay. I'll help. And then the other thing that was really interesting to me was, okay, but now what article do I go to next? And so if you use the cited by feature, that's a great starting point because you can find a lot of your other references by that. And I'll show you how that feature works. One thing I will say, kind of a word of caution, is, GCU Library, Google Scholar, many of these publisher sites as well will allow you to export the APA 7th reference list item and export it into Word, or they'll give it to you and people typically copy and paste. I will say be very careful with that because it's not always accurate. So great starting point potentially, but the best thing to do is to go into the announcements that I posted this week and actually either use OWL Purdue, use your APA 7th manual, or you can go ahead and look at the attachments that I uploaded in the announcements that actually will walk you through how to cite a journal article the correct way, because it's very easy to mess that up, okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to actually show you how I utilize Google Scholar, and I'll show you the GCU Library, so bear with me here while I kind of switch my view. So Google Scholar. So to go to Google Scholar, all you have to do is literally type in Google Scholar. I typically have it saved just kind of in my favorites, but you will click Google Scholar. This is what it looks like. So I mentioned that you are able to add GCU into your settings so that if I go in and I find an article that I want in Google Scholar, I can actually see if it's available in the GCU library. Oftentimes, the GCU library will have these articles that we can access for free, right? Google Scholar doesn't always do that, neither do direct publisher sites all the time. So I think it's important if you click on the menu icon here on the left and you go into your settings, you can actually click library links and you can add, I already have it added, but you could type in, Grand Canyon University and click the checkbox as an option and hit save. Okay. So again, menu, settings, library links. Okay. So you can go ahead and do that. Now, if I go back to Google Scholar, what I want to do next is I want to, let's search for something. So I want to look at articles on motivation. I've mentioned motivation. We're going to stick with that theme. But let's say I want to look at intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I want articles on that. I want to know what research has been done. I want to know what the latest and greatest authors are saying about it. I could type in intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? I'm using the and. I'm going to click this, and you can see here, overwhelming, right? There are 674,000 results that pop up here. Couple things to note and things that I notice when I'm going through this and I'm trying to narrow down articles. The first thing I look at is I look at the dates. Now, I know Ryan and DC are the seminal authors, like intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and self-determination theory is theirs. So this might be, even though it's 25 years old, this might be a good starting point, right? As here's the evolution, right? Here's how it started, and here's what the latest and greatest is, okay? But if I'm going to maybe this article, the second one, it's from 2003, I may not want to use that. Yes, you can see kind of what it is. But if you look at two things here, on the first one, you'll see that cited by. You can see here that this article has been cited 35,705 times. The reason is because these are the original, right? This is like the seminal work. And so that's why lots of people reference it. Now, if I were to click cited by, it will show all of the articles that have cited it. And what's awesome about this is look at this newer articles 2023, 2024, 2020, 2023. So, this is a really great tool to use if you're like, hey, I just need to find one more article. And yes, it's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, but I really want to look at job satisfaction, or I really want to look at, maybe turnover intention. I'm just thinking out loud here. You will be able to continue to narrow it down this way. Okay. So that's a great point, starting point, cited by. The next thing I will say is you can see here where on the right-hand side, the publisher that this article is on. So this, let's actually go down to, here we go, Theories of Motivation, a comprehensive analysis of human behavior drivers. Okay. If I click on it, it's published in Science Direct. I actually do have access to this. So I can pull up this PDF. I can read this article, no problem. Now, if I go back and I'm like, you know what, maybe I don't have access to it or something's going on, I can actually see that this full text is available at GCU. So what I could do is I could just click here and it will log me in to literally the library, and it shows that the full text is online. So what I can do here is I can click full text online, and I apologize, my dogs are barking in the background, but I can click full text online and I can actually view it. Okay. And so it should pull up the PDF here in just a second. It's just taking a minute to load, but here we go. Now I have the entire article. Okay. The other thing that I will say is, let me go back to Google Scholar here. I just have to kind of move this down a little bit because, here we go. There we go. So you'll see full text at GCU, you'll see cited by. Everything you need is here. On the left-hand side, you can also filter further. So we went from 674,000 results to 35,000. Let's say I'm like, I don't want anything older than 2021. I could click that and it goes down to 13,000. So you will just have to play with these filters until you can find something that works for you. Okay, so don't get overwhelmed with where do I start? I would start with the filters. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to take you to the GCU library. So I use the word intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Now let's see what that looks like in our library. And I'm going to pull this down again, just because, let me close some of these out. Here we go. So the URL is just library.gcu.edu. And this is what the homepage looks like. So you can use Lope search, which will kind of pull from everything, right? Your databases, your journals, your research guides, all of that. If I wanted journal specific, I could actually type in the name of the journal or the name of the article. If I wanted a database, I could view databases, and actually it will look like this here. It's all alphabetical. So if I wanted to go maybe to S, let's see if we have what kind of hits we have here. So we have SAGE research methods that I talked to you about, SAGE journals, academic books. This is the research methods I mentioned right here. So you can search by database. I will tell you, I'm just showing you to show you this, but let me go back to just the main library page here. I like to just search in Lope search. So what I would do is I would check peer reviewed, because I want that to happen. Now I'm going to type in intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Okay. I'm going to hit search, and this is what it looks like when it comes up in our library. Once it loads. Okay. So because I hit peer reviewed journal, it's already filtering the peer review. And you can see that at the top right underneath this search bar. And it's also giving me full text. Those filters are set. I've already clicked peer reviewed. Okay. Now, if you look here in the GCU library, there are 31,149 articles that pull up when I type in intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And so one thing I will say is you can filter it down further, and we can do a couple things. First and foremost, let me just back up for a sec. If I wanted to look at this first article, okay, let's say this sounds like it's really great. I can actually just hit Access Now PDF, and it will pull up the PDF for me. And this is from EBSCO. That's the publisher. That's where it's coming from. Okay. And I have the article. I can save this. I can bookmark it. I can download it. I can print it. I can do a whole lot with it. Okay. Let me back out of that. And I apologize because I have like my you are sharing your screen, so it's covering my tabs. So I'm kind of starting over again here. Okay, so we are back. This is the article that I just pulled up, this first link. You can, again, save the article by clicking this little like bookmark. You can click here, and this is, you can download directly, you can share it, you can create project folders. That's an option as well. I mentioned this site, the ability to import citations, or I guess export and put it into your Word document, but a couple things. This is from July of 2025, okay? I know this. The APA 7th edition came out, I don't remember if it was 2020 or early 2021, but if I were to click this and hit cite, it's not always going to be accurate. Let's see if it is, but it will pull up right here in the middle of the screen. And this drop down, you'll actually pick, kind of what style. We are, again, APA 7th. Now, I will say this is already incorrect. And I say this because all of these are capitalized in the title, which in APA 7th, not everything is capitalized. In a journal article, it's just the first letter, okay? So this is a great starting point, again, but just don't rely on it too much. The other thing, and I'm not going to be super picky about it. However, it's important for me to teach you the right way, okay? There are URLs and there are DOIs. And DOIs are links that it doesn't matter where, when, or what I click, that link is going to be static, meaning I can share that link with you. I can, that document or that article can go from wherever to wherever. The DOI stays the same. I can always access it. It's tied to that identifier. URLs are dynamic. So if I am copying and pasting a URL, it may change in a year. Okay. So anytime you find an article, I would do your best to search for the DOI, which is in the article. Okay. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because if you look at this URL, it is a URL that does have a DOI. That's fantastic. So we know that there's a DOI, but it has lopes in it. And that is specific to GCU. Okay. So when you're writing, you want to make sure that like maybe this isn't what I use. Okay. Because if I'm reading your paper and I'm not at GCU, I'm not going to be able to access this. Okay. So my recommendation is when you go to the article, and let's see if I can do this. So a couple things. Let me click on this and go actually right to the Access Now. So you will actually, so typically the DOI is in the article. If it's not, you will be able to still access it because it will be, and it is, and I can show you where it is in the library. But let me move this over. And so fun fact, the DOI is actually in the URL that I showed you that shows the citation. I just want to make sure. So here's the DOI. You can also find it here. Okay. So you just have to look a little bit. You have to play with it a little bit. So this DOI is literally going to be, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to open up a new tab. I'm going to type in HTTPS. DOI.org. Sorry, let me get this here. And there's the article. So this link does not change. Okay. So when I go and I type in the URL for it in my paper or whatever, I want to use that link, not the Lopes link. Okay. Again, I'm not going to be super picky with it. I may give you feedback on that, just so you can start doing it a little bit differently. So just be on the lookout for that. Okay. Now, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Let's say I want to filter it further. There are 31,000 results that came up, right? I already talked about this. We can actually filter it further. So if I wanted to, it doesn't reduce it that much more, but I want just academic journals, let's say. Okay. So I might hit apply for that. It'll take it back down to like 30,000. So again, not much. But I can go here and I can say, you know what? I just want articles in the past 5 years. It's going to bring it down significantly. So we go from 31,000 to 30,000. Now we're down to 10,000. Okay. So that's helpful there too. You can search for even more filters. And I don't know if you're seeing my camera up here, so let me move it here. But if I wanted to, what I could do is I could actually say, you know what, I just want to see it in English. Okay. Again, that's only about 200 articles. So we can filter it more. Let's say I want to have an article that was either written or maybe a study that took place in the United States. Okay. I could check that. I could hit apply. And now what happens is we're going from 10,000. And then you'll see kind of what that looks like here. As soon as it loads, we are down to 173. So now I have 173 articles down from 31,000, which is pretty incredible. Okay. It's peer reviewed. It's been published in the last 5 years. It's coming from an academic journal. It's in English, so I can read it. And maybe there's studies that have taken place in the United States. Okay. Or maybe the authors in the US, whatever that is, right? That is very helpful. And I would suggest that you play with that as you pull up some articles and you're searching for your expository kind of topic. Okay. What else? So if I wanted to hit advanced search, I talked about the Boolean operators and refining and narrowing some of those keywords using and, or, and not. If I click advanced search, I could do that. So I know there's already an and in here, so we'll just keep that. But let's say I want intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And let's say I want job satisfaction. It will actually kind of predict what I want to say. Let's just say I want to do this one. Job satisfaction or work satisfaction or employee satisfaction. That's fine. Let's say a lot of studies come back and sometimes it is very related to, like, lots of studies take place in healthcare fields, right? So let's say I don't want that. I'm going to say not related essentially to healthcare or hospital or health facilities. I want that gone. I want to look at other things. I don't want to look at that like setting. Now, if I go ahead and I hit search, and the rest of them are limited, right? So the rest of the filters don't change. It's still full text peer reviewed. It's still 5 years. I can filter the language again, but let's keep it as is and let's hit search. And you'll see kind of what the difference is. So you'll see that either in the abstract or the keywords or the subjects, you will see some of these words pop up in the titles. Okay. So let's do, let's find one. And actually, this really limited it to 4, which is fine. But let's say we wanted to, okay, so this does reference motivation, okay? References satisfaction, but it doesn't necessarily talk about healthcare. It does talk about chiropractic faculty. So this is probably like a higher education setting, okay? If I wanted to go back to the advanced search, and this is me just playing with it, right? Let's say I wanted to just do engagement, and let's say not, let's say not men. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So it pulls up 18. Okay. So intrinsic motivation, I had put that in the keyword. Okay. Diverse participants in a corporate volunteer program. Okay, great. Teacher-student relationships. Okay. So this, again, you can just play with it. If you're finding that you're getting overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, I just wanted to show you this. Okay. Again, any questions, definitely let me know. But let me go back to, sorry. Actually, you know what? I'm going to show you one more thing here. In the topics, there are certain chapters that you need to read kind of each week. And so if you go to the resources on the right-hand side, you will see one of the first links is the link to your textbook. It'll say like read chapter 1 and 2 or read chapter 1. That takes you to Bibliu, and this is the textbook. Okay, so when you click that link, you'll get into Bibliu, and then you can actually read through the text. Okay, so sometimes I get questions on how to access the textbooks, but that's how it is. You'll have access to it throughout the course. Okay, again, it's 87 pages, but really good information on information literacy. So now let me go back here and let me just present again. And now what I want to do is I want to talk through, so we already went through the search activity. I want to talk about how to read a journal article. So you filtered it down, now you need to read it. How do you actually read a journal article to determine if it's even relevant? Because I mentioned, and I shared my experience with you earlier, we are taught to read from start to finish, right? Left to right. And with journal articles, you don't necessarily need to do that because there's a very high rigor and process and methodology for journal articles to be published that a lot of them follow the same kind of section headings and styles. So the great thing about this is you can actually jump around, and it's going to feel weird, but you can actually jump around to different sections in the beginning to determine if that's something you even want to use, as opposed to reading the entire thing. Okay. So I start with the title and the abstract. Okay. The abstract is a high-level summary of what is going to be talked about in the article. So the title has to be relevant. You can do that with the kind of filtering of the keywords and all of that, which I just showed you. And then it will tell you if it's relevant to the assignment. The abstract's going to review the research questions. It may review the hypotheses. It'll talk about the methodology, the design. It will also present kind of key findings. Okay. There are also keywords that are tagged there in the abstract that's helpful. So let's say you read the title, you read the abstract, you're like, sounds like that could be a really great thing. The next thing I would do is I would read the introduction of the paper. And oftentimes it's literally called introduction. And it's one of the first sections or the first section after that abstract. But you can actually discover the article's main arguments, and you will be able to find the thesis. So as you are thinking through an expository essay, it's very different. It's not a persuasive essay. It's not an argumentative essay. It's not a narrative essay. An expository essay is literally thinking of a topic that's of interest to you, coming up with a thesis claim. So for example, maybe the topic that you're interested in is college and burnout. Okay. And you're going to find articles on college burnout, right? You're going to find a variety of them. You're going to come up with that thesis claim. And then the expository essay piece is you're going to look at what's been said and done to kind of support that claim. Now, you are sharing facts, you're sharing the structure, you're doing all of that. So the introduction and that thesis will help you determine if it's relevant. So why was this study or why is this article necessary, right? What have people already written about it, right? What question are the authors trying to answer, okay? And then I would pause there to check for understanding. So start with the title and abstract, read that introduction, and then pause, okay? Do I understand what's being said? Does it sound like it's relevant? If so, I typically go right to the results. Okay. Depending on the article, it might be called discussion, it might be called findings. I usually compare the question with the answer. Okay. So what did the author actually find? Okay. And are the results presented in a way that's maybe not biased, right? Are they credible? Is it factual? Okay. After I read those results and it's still relevant, then what I will do is I will go right to the conclusion and I will compare the conclusion to the introduction. Is there a clear answer to the research question that was established in the introduction? Or is there a clear tie-in? Did the author achieve their objective? Okay. Why do the findings matter? That's important because that will help you support your thesis as you're going through and learning how to write. And then what additional research or what's the call to action, right? What else needs to be done? The methods section usually I keep for one of the end pieces, and that the reason why is because it's the most technical section. Okay. And if you read it first or you read it in order, you may go through a lot of jargon that you know nothing about, and it might not even be relevant. So I always say, like, look at the foundation of the article through the title, through the intro, through the conclusion, and kind of what came of it first. Then you can read the methods, right? Does the design make sense that they used, right? Do they identify how they were making measurements? And then finally, you can finish with citations and references. And the reason why I like to do that, it's very similar to the cited by, okay? But if I want to cite an article, I may look at their references because I may be able to go find that article and add that to my paper, okay? And oftentimes it will include those links directly to other articles that are related. One thing that will be important as you kind of come up with your I would say your topic and as you're going through is there's oftentimes what's called the literature review. And that's usually in the beginning, typically right after the introduction. It may talk about the theories that are being used in some of these articles. It's very detailed. It could still be one of the last things you read, but the literature review is good. And it's good if you want more context on the concepts, if you want to review the theoretical foundations, right? Or maybe the conceptual model that was used. Also, if you need more references for your work, because a lot of times literature review talks about kind of the evolution, right, of this topic. And so sometimes that can help you, again, locate other authors that are very prevalent. I would say as you find articles for your expository topic, essay, and all of that, one thing I like to do is I like to pull, let's say my topic is, let's just say it is COVID-19, healthcare workers, burnout, and turnover and tension. Okay. Obviously a very stressful time. The scope and the context is really, really large. People are tired. Okay. So what I may do is when I go to find those articles, I'll find articles on maybe COVID-19 and healthcare workers. I may find articles on turnover and tension in healthcare workers. And I may look for burnout in healthcare workers. Okay. So my population of healthcare workers is the common thread. And then I'm pulling in each kind of little variable. Okay. And when I fill out these worksheets and I'm looking at how I can tie these threads together, what I like to do is I like to highlight keywords that I feel like are repeating themselves between the articles. Okay. So if the word stress continues to pop up, okay, that might be like a keyword that is important to me. Okay. And what I like to do is I take these threads and I say, what are the commonalities in all of these articles? And what's something that I'm still interested in learning about? And then I put it together. So when we talk about synthesis, that's a part of critical thinking. So critical thinking is being able to evaluate information in a not biased way, to be able to contrast information. So what are the differences? I would even say, what are the themes that are similar based on these keywords you're searching for? Looking at diverse opinions in that. So not necessarily just the articles that are going to support your thesis, but looking at differing viewpoints, okay? And synthesizing that information. So when we say synthesizing, that's a very hard concept to come up with. And sometimes it's hard for people as they're making that transition into writing a little bit more scholarly, because people think of synthesizing as I'm just paraphrasing and I'm summarizing, and that's not what it is. I like to compare synthesis to like, and one of my professors had taught me this, synthesis is like baking a cake, right? You may look at your mom's recipe and then you'll look at your grandma's recipe, and it's both for chocolate cake. Okay. The difference is, hey, both are really, really great. My mom uses an extra half cup of sugar. My grandma actually uses brown sugar, and then she also adds one extra egg. Okay. They're two totally different recipes. Now, what I want to do is I want to take this for my grandma, the best pieces, and I want to take the best pieces for my mom's recipe, and I want to create my own chocolate cake recipe. Okay. So I may add an extra egg and add brown sugar and maybe lessen or add XYZ. Okay. So I'm taking what's out there and I'm creating something new from it. Okay. And so that is, again, a muscle you haven't flexed and developed yet, and that's okay. You'll get there. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that you have some tools in your back pocket to really just analyze articles, find articles, narrow the search down a little bit, and hopefully it's a little bit less intimidating for you. If you have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.